At 2:19 a.m. on eastbound I-80, a woman in a white dress was standing dead center in my lane, and when my high beams found her face, she smiled and stepped toward the truck instead of away from it. I locked the brakes and felt the whole cab shudder, but she never flinched, just held that smile through the windshield glass. By the time the rig stopped, she was gone, and something was knocking on the driver's side door from the outside. Story 1, The Woman on I-80. My name is Dale Pruitt, and I've been driving long haul since I was 23 years old. That's 31 years behind the wheel, refrigerated freight, mostly, hauling everything from frozen beef to pharmaceutical loads that had to stay at exactly -10 Fahrenheit or the company ate the loss. I know these roads the way other men know the back of their hands. I've been based out of Sacramento for the last decade, running the I-80 corridor east through Reno and into Utah and back. The route is lonesome past Winnemucca, nothing but sage and alkali flats and the occasional jackrabbit frozen in your headlights. You learn to love the emptiness after a while, or you find another line of work. I loved it. I genuinely did. The night it happened was October 2019, a Tuesday, somewhere between Lovelock and Battle Mountain. I'd left the Sacramento terminal at 6 in the evening with 40,000 pounds of refrigerated poultry on the trailer, bound for a distribution center outside Salt Lake City. A normal run. Nothing about it felt different from the 10,000 nights before it. I remember the exact time, 2:07 in the morning. My coffee had gone cold in the cup holder and I was thinking about pulling over at the rest stop near Valmy when my headlights caught something in the center lane, maybe a quarter mile ahead. A shape. White. My first thought was debris, a garbage bag blown off a pickup, which you see all the time on this stretch. Debris that size will shred a trailer tire if you don't ease around it. I touched the brakes, downshifted, and kept my eyes on it. Then the shape moved. It was a woman. Standing in the center lane of Interstate 80, in the middle of the Nevada desert, 2 in the morning, barefoot. A long white dress, past her knees, old-fashioned, the kind of dress that belongs in a photograph and not on a highway. No coat. No bag. No car on the shoulder. Nothing around her for miles. I was already braking hard, the air brakes screaming, 40,000 pounds of loaded trailer pushing against me. She didn't run. She didn't lunge for the shoulder the way a normal person does when 80,000 pounds of steel comes bearing down on them. She turned to face my headlights and she smiled. It went too far across her face. Much too far. She stepped toward me. Not sideways, not back, toward me, into the lights, like she was welcoming it. I was doing everything I could, horn, brakes, hazards, and then the rig stopped. I looked through the windshield and she was gone. The road ahead was empty. Nothing in the mirrors. Nothing on the shoulder. Nothing anywhere. I sat there for maybe 20 seconds with the engine idling and my hands locked on the wheel. 31 years of driving. I have seen deer, mule deer, once a horse, big animals in the road at speed, and you know what the impact sounds and feels like, and you grieve the animal after. There was no impact. There was no sound. There was no woman. Then the knocking started. 3 slow knocks on the driver's side door, low, near the step. Not frantic, not desperate, measured and patient, like whoever was outside had nowhere else to be and all night to wait. I could feel each knock traveling through the door panel, through my elbow, up into my shoulder. My window was closed. The door was locked. I did not look out the window. Something in me that predates language, some part that is still an animal, screamed not to. I put the truck in gear. I pulled back onto the road. The knocking followed, 1 knock per second, 6 seconds, and then it stopped. I did not look in the mirror until I hit 60 miles per hour. I told myself she was a stranded motorist who had gotten confused and somehow ended up behind me. I told myself the smile was a trick of the headlights, a distortion through the glass. I told myself a lot of things at 65 miles an hour through the Nevada dark. None of them held. Around 3:15, somewhere past Golconda Summit, my CB crackled on Channel 19. An older male voice, rough and deep, the kind that belongs to a man who has been behind a wheel since before I was born. He said, "Anyone on I-80 eastbound, mile markers 210 to 240, I just about put my rig through the guardrail. Woman in the road. White dress. Barefoot. Anyone copy?" I grabbed my handset. I said, "Copy that, partner. I had the same encounter about an hour back." She disappeared before I made contact. "You all right?" There was a pause. Longer than I liked. Then he said, "She didn't disappear on me." His voice had gone flat, the way a voice goes when something has gotten all the way inside a person. "She's just standing there," he said. Smiling. "She stepped toward the truck," he said. "She's still smiling." Another pause. Then, "She's knocking." And the line went dead. Not static. Not a slow fade. Clean, absolute silence. I called back on 19, on 21, on 9. I tried for 20 minutes. Nothing. I don't know that man's name or his company. I have thought about him every single day since October of 2019. The Golconda way station was lit up and open, and I pulled in because I needed another human being in front of me more than I'd ever needed anything in my adult life. The DOT officer who came out was named Rios, I could read it on her badge. She did the standard check, walked the trailer, looked at my log. Then I told her what I'd seen. I don't know why. It just came out. She didn't laugh. She didn't look at me the way people look at a driver who has been awake too long. She said, "Your rig's running a dashcam, isn't it?" I said yes. She asked if she could pull the last 2 hours of footage. I said yes. She climbed into the cab with a laptop while I stood outside in the cold and watched moths circle the lot lights overhead. She was in there for 11 minutes. I counted. When she climbed back down, something had rearranged itself in her expression. She handed me my paperwork and then said, in a voice so quiet I had to lean in to hear it under the sound of the highway, "The woman in the footage, she doesn't cast a shadow." She glanced at the lot lights above us. At that angle, under those lights, everything casts a shadow. The truck casts one. The guard rail casts one. She doesn't. Officer Rios put her hand on my forearm for 1 second, brief and deliberate, the way you touch someone who is about to walk into something dangerous. She said, "Keep both hands on the wheel. Don't stop again until the sun is up. And if you hear knocking, don't answer the door." Then she walked back inside the station. I stood in that lit lot for a long moment. Then I got in my truck and I drove. I made Salt Lake by 6:40 in the morning. The sun was coming up hard and orange over the Wasatch Range, and I have never been so grateful for daylight in my life. I backed the trailer to the dock. The lumpers unloaded it. I signed the delivery paperwork. Normal. Everything was normal. I pulled the rig into the back lot to sleep in the sleeper before the deadhead returned to Sacramento. I was hollow tired, that specific exhaustion that lives behind the eyes after a bad night. I climbed through the pass-through into the back. I reached for the curtain. And I stopped. There was something on my bunk. Folded. White. I did not breathe. I did not move. I stood in the narrow pass-through between the seats and stared at it. A dress. White. Long, folded as neat as a hotel towel. The fabric was old, you could see it in the way the creases held, in the fraying at the hem, in the collar buttons that were bone, not plastic. It was older than the highway it had ridden in on. I touched it. I don't know why I touched it. It was cold and wet all the way through, not damp from rain but cold the way things are cold when they come up from deep water. And then the smell hit me. Rain on hot asphalt. The exact smell I had noticed around mile marker 203 and written off as imagination. Every door on that truck had been locked. Every one. I left the dress where it was. I climbed out, went inside the terminal, and sat at a plastic table with a cup of bad coffee until noon. Then I called my dispatcher and told her I needed another driver for the return run. I never drove that specific truck again. A month later I asked about it under the pretense of a maintenance question. They said it had been reassigned. The new driver had put in a transfer request after his second week. He wouldn't say why. I filed a report with Nevada Highway Patrol the next day, including everything I'd heard on the CB, the other driver, his description of the woman, the silence when she started knocking. NHP had no record of any incident on I-80 eastbound that night. No crash, no breakdown, no abandoned vehicle, no distress call between mile markers 210 and 240. It was as if that man had simply ceased to exist somewhere out on that dark road. I don't drive I-80 through Nevada anymore. I found another corridor and took a pay cut to do it, and I have not regretted a single dollar. When people ask why I changed routes, I tell them my knees are shot. And if you are ever on that highway, in the dead hours, the nothing hours between 2 and 4 in the morning, nothing in the mirrors and nothing ahead, and your headlights catch something white standing in the center lane, don't stop. Don't open the door. Don't touch what you find somewhere it has no right to be. She got into a locked truck with every window up and both doors bolted, and I still don't know how she did it. And I don't think I-80 is the only road she walks. Story 2, mile marker 231. This happened to me in the fall of 2019, when I was pulling long haul for Meridian Freight out of Flagstaff, Arizona. I'd been running the Highway 191 corridor for 3 years by then, north through Chambers and Ganado, all the way up to the terminal in Moab, Utah. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady, and I was good at it. My rig was a 2017 Kenworth T680, slate gray, with a dried mud streak on the passenger door I kept meaning to wash off. I left the Flagstaff yard at 11:15 p.m. on November 4th, running empty, which meant a lighter load and maybe a hot meal in Monticello before I signed off. I was in a good mood, singing along to old Waylon Jennings on the satellite radio. I remember that detail because it is the last ordinary thing I can think of from that night. Highway 191 through Arizona at midnight is as lonesome as a road gets. No cell signal for long stretches, no other traffic, just headlights punching into the dark and the white dashes ticking past. My GPS showed a clean path north and my CB radio caught occasional chatter from southbound drivers, faint voices out of the static, proof that other people still existed somewhere. I passed mile marker 220 around 12:30 a.m. and made a mental note the way drivers do, keeping a running count of where you are on a dark road. Mile 231 would put me another 20 minutes further on, up toward the Lupton crossing. I'd passed it 100 times without giving it a second thought. My GPS froze at 12:44 a.m. The little blue arrow locked on screen, stopped dead on a stretch of 191 south of Lupton, and the display went perfectly still. I tapped the unit, power cycled it, and it rebooted and came back online like nothing had happened. Satellite glitch, I told myself, high desert, wide sky, thin signals. It happened. I passed mile marker 231 at 12:51 a.m. It came up in the headlights the same way it always did, briefly and unremarkably, and I drove on. At 1:17 a.m., I passed it again. I slowed when I saw it, because my odometer had been ticking steadily northward and I had not turned around. I said out loud, "The hell?" The kind of thing you say to an empty cab because there's no one else to tell. I wrote it off as miscounting in the dark, night blindness, tired eyes reading a 221 as a 231. At 1:38 a.m., I passed mile marker 231 a third time. I pulled over onto the shoulder, put the truck in park, and sat for a full minute with the engine running, just staring at the post. My hands were trembling, not from fear yet, but from a specific kind of confusion that makes your brain feel like it's stuttering over the same bad calculation it cannot resolve. I got out of the cab. The desert was absolutely silent except for my engine. The air was cold and smelled of creosote and something else underneath, something damp and subterranean, like the inside of a well. I walked to the post and shone my flashlight directly on the numbers. 2, 3, 1. I got back in and drove north without stopping, watching the markers tick sequentially, 232, 233, 234, 235. Normal. Sequential. I breathed and told myself I'd just been tired, maybe micro-sleeping at the wheel in brief patches I couldn't remember. At 2:19 a.m., mile marker 231 appeared in my headlights for the fourth time. And this time, there was a truck parked on the shoulder. It was a Kenworth T680, slate gray, running lights completely off, sitting dark on the hard shoulder about 30 feet ahead of the post. Even from a distance, before I had fully processed what I was seeing, something in my chest pulled hard and tight, the way your body sometimes knows a thing before your mind is willing to. I stopped 50 yards behind it and sat with my foot on the brake, engine idling. My headlights caught the passenger side of the cab. There was a mud streak on the passenger door, dried reddish-brown, diagonal, low near the wheel well and wider near the handle. The exact same shape as mine. The exact same color. I pulled a receipt from the pilot truck stop in Holbrook out of my cup holder and wrote down the plate number. It was my plate number. The driver's side was dark. I couldn't see the window from where I sat, couldn't make out anything past the glare of my own headlights bouncing back at me. I sat there for what felt like a very long time, unable to drive forward and unable to reverse, caught in a kind of paralysis I had never felt before and still don't have a name for. Then the cab of the other truck shifted. Just barely, the slight movement of someone adjusting their weight in a seat. And slowly, with the patience of someone who has been waiting a long time and is entirely unbothered by the weight, the figure in the driver's seat turned its head toward me and raised one hand in a single, slow wave. I keyed the fleet radio and got through to Carlita, the overnight dispatcher at the Flagstaff yard. She was always steady, always calm. 3 years on the overnight shift will do that to a person. But when she spoke, her voice had gone flat. The specific kind of flat that happens when someone is frightened and managing it very tightly. She said, "Marcus, your GPS tracker has you stationary at mile marker 231. It has had you stationary there for the past 3 hours. It has not moved. My own GPS unit showed me rolling north at 62 miles per hour. 3 hours stationary would have put my last logged movement at 11:19 p.m., 4 minutes after I left the yard. I drove. I did not look in my mirrors. I did not look at the dark truck as I passed it. I pressed the accelerator down and kept my eyes fixed on the white dashes ahead of me, and I did not stop until the lights of the Moab terminal came up on the horizon just before 4 a.m., pale yellow and institutional and the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. The night manager, Dale Oswick, was standing outside the gate instead of in the booth. He wasn't carrying his clipboard. He was just standing there in the dark with his arms at his sides, and when my headlights found him he looked up at me with a face that was too pale and too careful. He said a truck had already checked in 2 hours earlier. A Kenworth T680, same unit number, same driver name, Marcus Webb, Meridian 774. The driver had signed my name in the logbook, in my handwriting, and Dale had processed the check-in without question because there was no reason to question it. Then he went to find the driver for the delivery confirmation, and the driver was simply not there. Not in Bay 7, not in the lounge, not in the bathroom. 3 of the night crew had seen the man walk in from the gate, a figure in a Meridian jacket, roughly my build. Not one of them could describe his face. The best any of them managed was that it had been, in some way they couldn't quite articulate, a difficult face to look at, a face that made you want to glance away before you'd fully registered it. One of the dock workers said he'd felt that pull at the time and hadn't understood it. He said he understood it well enough now. The truck in Bay 7 was mine. Mud streak on the passenger door. Seat adjusted to my settings. Mirrors at my exact angles. There was a receipt from the pilot truck stop in Holbrook on the floor of the cab. I had never been in Bay 7. I put in for a route transfer the following week and Meridian gave it to me without asking why. I think Carlita had said something to the yard manager that I was never told about. I don't drive the 191 corridor anymore. Not at night. Not through that stretch between mile 220 and 235. The logbook entry with my name in my handwriting is still in the terminal records in Moab. Dale told me he still looks at it sometimes, when the overnight shift gets slow and quiet. He keeps waiting for someone official to come and ask about it. Nobody ever does. Something on that stretch of highway found my shape and wore it well enough to sign my name, park my truck, and walk through a lit building without a single soul being able to recall its face. It sat in that cab at mile 231 and waited for me to drive past, and when I did, it waved. Patient. Unhurried. Like it had always known I was coming. I've stopped asking whether it's still out there. I already know the answer. If you ever drive long haul, if you find yourself alone on a dark highway at 2 in the morning watching the mile markers tick by in the headlights, pay attention to the ones you pass twice. Not because noticing will help you, but because whatever is waiting at that marker already knows your face, knows your handwriting, knows the exact shape of the mud on your door. And when it turns its head toward you and raises its hand in that slow, patient wave, that means it has been sitting there specifically for you. And it is in absolutely no hurry at all.